Hello again, everybody, and welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips joined by Wes Mitchell, and the Gamecock coaching staff continues to hit the recruiting trail. Even though we're in the dead period here, lots of recruiting news as we near signing day. Wes, how you doing this morning? Happy holidays to you.
I'm doing great, man. Hope you are as well. Ready, for the holidays to get here, and also following some Gamecocks recruiting here at GamecockCentral.com as well.
Right. Talk about the dead period, Wes. The Gamecocks obviously not able to have any face-to-face contact with recruits, but that does not mean recruiting comes to a standstill during this dead period.
No, not at all. I think that's probably a misconception for just the average fan out there following recruiting a little bit, is that the dead period means they can't talk. They can still talk on the phone. They can make their one call per week. They can accept calls from the prospects. So still a lot going on with recruiting, and you see guys committing, you see guys getting offers, you see guys getting evaluated. So it's technically a dead period, but things aren't quite as dead as you might think they would be.
All right, a number of prospects we can talk about today, Wes, and I think we should probably begin with DeAndre Champaigne, the wide receiver out of Fort Dorchester High School in North Charleston. Fort Dorchester just played at Williams-Brice a couple of weeks ago and whipped Dorman in the 4A Division I state championship. Champaigne, 6'3", 175-pounder, had a big game, and Wes, Will Muschamp and the staff offered him shortly thereafter, and he accepted this week, and his mama broke down and cried. They were so happy to get an offer from South Carolina, and it looks like Champaigne will be a Gamecock.
Yeah, I think I really think a nice pickup for South Carolina. A lot of times some of these under-the-radar guys, you look at them and you kind of see, well, that's why they're under the radar, and some guys you look at them and you say, why does this guy not have more offers? And, when I first looked at his highlights, a week or two ago, I said, man, this guy actually does some really nice things. He's 6'3", 175. He's a track guy too. He's he can go up and get the football. He can get open. He's a downfield threat. I found myself saying this guy deserves, double-digit offers just as what he is as a player, So I think, when you look at South Carolina's looking to add wide receivers, the fact that it's obviously late in this class, so not you're trying to get out there and build relationships. You're trying to find guys that can help, but also that you can sign, because some of these guys you're going to be late for because it's a new coaching staff. So when you consider all those things, I really like the take as far as going out another in-state kid. This staff, eventually I think they'll probably be recruiting to the extent that they're going to be, a little more picky with who they offer. But in-state right now is definitely a priority for South Carolina, and they, I think, want to show these other in-state coaches that South Carolina, the state, is going to be a priority for the University of South Carolina, and I think this is just another example of that.
So Champaigne committed to the Gamecocks immediately after receiving the offer. And Wes, talk about some of the offers that Champaigne had on the table. He's been a late riser in the recruiting circles here in the last few weeks. He had a big senior season and over 100 yards and a touchdown in the state championship win for Fort Dorchester. So talk a little bit more about Champaigne. Who was on him and what endeared the Gamecocks to him?
Yeah, a guy, like I said, just didn't have much attention until the very end. Western Carolina was actually the first school to offer him. I think UMass jumped in and offered. ECU was talking to him as well, but still a guy that was very much under the radar. I think some schools were waiting to get transcripts back and see where he was as far as that goes. But, a guy that I think fits what South Carolina wants to do offensively. And, I think they probably have been in a situation where they have needed to add some height to the receiving core too. And at 6'3", 6'4", he's certainly a guy that does that.
All right, let's stay local with recruiting talk here, Wes. T.J. Brunson is a linebacker out of Richland Northeast High School in Columbia. The day that Will Muschamp was announced and introduced as the South Carolina head football coach, he drove immediately from the press conference over to R&E to pay a visit to T.J. Brunson, who had been committed to Louisville. But things have changed this week for T.J. Brunson, who was just named MVP for South Carolina in the Shrine Bowl game this past Saturday. Had 13 tackles, had a big game for the Sandlappers, even though South Carolina lost that game. But Brunson, the South Carolina defensive MVP of the Shrine Bowl, has opened back up his recruiting.
Yeah, he made that official on Monday that he was opening up his recruitment. This is something we've hinted at on the site. That could be coming for a while there. I think that this is something that was pretty much inevitable, but now it's official. He's not going to Louisville, and we've also mentioned a number of times we feel very good about South Carolina's chances with Brunson, and this only increases that when you look at the fact that he's now officially back on the market. He's got an official visit to South Carolina set up for that January 15 weekend. And, I think at this point it's pretty safe to say all signs point to the Gamecocks.
Interesting. Brunson plays for Richland Northeast High. He's a senior there now, and his high school head coach is Jay Fry, who played on the 1984 Gamecock Black Magic team, and Jay's grandfather happens to be Sarge Fry, so that's a name that Gamecock fans know very well. We invite you to download the new phone apps that allow you to listen to Gamecock Central Radio on your phone. The iPhone app is out, and the Android app is available now as well. Free downloads for these phone apps. We're also on iTunes. Simply search Gamecock Central Radio for all three. Wes, let's talk about Rico Dowdell, quarterback/running back out of Asheville, a prolific scorer in high school football in North Carolina, and the Gamecocks are showing interest in him.
Yeah, South Carolina just recently offered him last, I guess, Wednesday it would have been. And, Daddle's a kid that, again, I have a hard time believing he doesn't have way more offers than he does. Right now, South Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest are, about the biggest schools that have offered him. Tennessee has shown him a ton of interest, but have not pulled the trigger on that offer. So, this is a kid that scored 63 touchdowns his senior year while playing quarterback. I think he rushed for 50-something of those, threw 10 plus, and even caught one. So, this is a guy that actually grew up in Gaffney. He says Shaq Davison, the South Carolina wide receiver, is his cousin. South Carolina is his dream school. It's a school he's really seen himself playing at for a long, long time, and he's been wanting this offer for a long, long time. So, at this point, I believe it. You'd have to say the Gamecocks are in really good shape of landing this kid. And again, it's kind of I guess resourceful would be the word for it. It's a pretty resourceful offer when you consider this group needs playmakers. This offense needs playmakers, and they need wide receivers, and they need running backs. So. You look at bringing in Champaigne, a kid that's got a chance, as a downfield playmaking threat, and then Daddle in the backfield there. I personally, even though the kid's not very highly recruited, I personally think he's a 4-star talent, and I think Daddle is a guy that very easily could actually be starting at running back. When you look at, it's a position where guys get banged up a lot in the first place, so generally your opening day starter, which would probably be David Williams for South Carolina next year, doesn't always go the distance. You look at that, and I look at the depth or lack of experience behind him, and I think Rico Daddle could basically essentially come out of nowhere and at some point for the Gamecocks next season be a starter if this thing does go the way we expect, with him likely ending up with South Carolina.
Very interesting. Will Muschamp's recruiting strategy coming in, getting started right away. He is focused on talent that is local. We talked about Brunson at R&E and DeAndre Champaigne out of the Charleston area, Fort Dorchester, Rico Dowdell out of Asheville. Some of these guys kind of under the radar and not receiving major interest from big programs, but you never know when you find a diamond in the rough like that, and I think that's what Muschamp and his staff have tried to focus on locally in the recruiting efforts that have been made to this point. So this is Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell. You can get breaking Gamecock news alerts delivered to your email inbox. Just text USC to 42828. Text USC to 42828. Or go to the Gamecock Central homepage for more information. Wes, how about some other targets? We've heard there are several other Gamecock targets that will be making a decision this week.
Yeah, a couple of guys to watch. Kier Thomas, the defensive end who is down there in South Florida that, essentially was a major target for Travaris Robinson and Will Muschamp when they were at Auburn. Naturally becomes a big-time target for South Carolina here once that staff arrived. He's a defensive end prospect that I think would fit in perfectly at that buck position, which is the hybrid linebacker DN spot in a Will Muschamp defense. So he's one to watch. He's looked at very possibly a Thursday, Christmas Eve decision. I actually think the Gamecocks are in, pretty good shape there, it sounds like. And then Troy Pride Jr., the kid from Greer, who is a Shrine Bowl guy there at cornerback, he is set to announce his decision as well. He's picked up late South Carolina and Clemson offers down the stretch of his recruitment, but still looking heavily at Notre Dame and NC State. And he's actually never taken official to South Carolina or Clemson. So, at this point, you would think he would be heading out of state, but at the same time, we obviously don't know that yet. So that'll be one to at least follow there on Christmas Eve as well.
Outstanding recruiting update here from Wes Mitchell. Wes, we appreciate the update, and we hope Santa's good to you, man. Thank you.
All right, Emerson, you have a good one, man.
All right, that's Wes Mitchell, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. We'll have plenty more Gamecock football news, lots of recruiting to talk about in the weeks to come as we approach signing day in early February. Thanks for joining us on Gamecock Central Radio.